Yeah, so, from the looks of it, they're going to put a lot of money into Captain America. I can tell.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a good director, good screenwriter, good everything. And once they find the actor, I'm sure it's a good one. Of course, they haven't decided on who's going to play Captain America. But
yeah, I think Brad Pitt should play Captain America.
Really?
Yeah. I know he's a little
He's a bit old.
older now, but Captain America was actually a superhero that was freezed from like World War II, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
so,
World War II, and then it became
Steve
like
Rogers,
this super soldier.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
So why not? I mean, he's a poster boy. Brad Pitt's a poster boy of like, American cinema, so why not the poster boy of Marvel comic books, which is
unless
Captain
of course
America.
they're thinking super soldier and they put Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Super soldier, I guess.
Yeah. Watchmen. What do you think of Watchmen? Again,
I think Watchmen was a great movie.
Yeah, I thought so too. And even though it didn't do well at the box office, you can tell that there was thought put into everything, from the costume to the design of the the sets.
The costume. See, Zack Snyder did very little directing on this movie because all he did was just look at a comic book and go, yep, let's just follow it to the T. I'm serious.
Wow.
I'm serious. If you read the comic books, he took liberties. Actually, I wouldn't even say he took liberties. He just took some parts away. And he just left the essence of it, and he really did a good adaptation. If that means you're a good director, then he's the best director I've ever had the pleasure of watching. But in and of itself, the comic book is the movie, and the movie is the comic book.
Yeah, early on we were talking about how when they do an Asian franchise, they don't put as much effort into it as they would an American franchise.
That is right.
But I think the problem is not just with Asian comic book heroes. I think it also comes to women characters.
Okay.
Do you know that this Wonder Woman thing has been going on? The project has been going on for many, many years.
Yeah.
And they tried to bring her to screen. I mean, it's so obvious that Wonder Woman is way up there with Superman and Batman. But we haven't had a movie version for so long. And I think it's because, Hollywood, again, mostly run by men, don't want a champion. They don't feel...
They want to put a female in the lead, like a story about women.
And they're not like as passionate about it as they would be about
Actually,
Batman.
I don't think so.
You think so?
I think it's more of a Warner Brothers DC comic book sort of thing because Marvel has act together. Marvel sort of they said we're gonna license our own instead of licensing out to film studios. We're gonna start Marvel Entertainment and they make their own movies by themselves. So they have more creative control. While DC has to work with Warner Brothers has to work with Legendary Pictures, who brings out Batman and Superman, who work with their own sort of like creative teams. If you look at Marvel pumping out their movies, there was Punisher, there's a Fantastic Four, there was Iron Man, there's Incredible Hulk, 2 movies Incredible Hulk, there's all the 3 Spider-Man trilogies, but what DC comic books has what? Batman and Superman, and that's it. Okay. So I think it's just more of an internal struggle, more than the fact that they don't want to put a female in the lead. Because I mean, look at Lara Croft. I mean, Angelina Jolie, both in the lead. If they casted Angelina Jolie in Wonder Woman, I'm sure it would sell. But my vote is for Kate Beckinsale.
Kate Beckinsale would be a very good choice. Yes, she's very beautiful and
she looks great in tights, like in Underworld. So.
Yeah. I think Underworld, the strength of that franchise was because Kate Beckinsale was
Of course! You're not gonna see Underworld for vampires. You can watch Interview with a Vampire and Tom Cruise.
It didn't even feel like a vampire film or a werewolf film. Okay, what do you think of Asian adaptations of their own manga? For instance, Old Boy and Akira, Death Note, Ichi the Killer.
I watched Ichi the Killer. I thought it was a great movie.
Excellent, right?
Excellent movie.
Excellent, right?
Excellent movie. Very faithful.
Absolutely
uber
fantastic.
Violent. It was great. But the thing is that Japanese culture in of itself has its own quirks, and it's nice to see it on film. It can translate when it's done by a Japanese person. So maybe I guess you're right. They know these things.
Yeah. I don't even think it's a cultural thing. I actually think it's a how respectful are you of the franchise, and whether you feel like, my country is watching me, and I think it's also because they actually love these comic books themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, Bryan Singer did such a great job with X-Men because he said that he felt like an outcast when he was growing up because he was an orphan, blah, 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 blah.
He did leave the third X movie to go to do Superman Returns because he was the biggest Superman fan, and look at how that happened. Superman bombed out. Superman is a hard character, right? Before we go into that, I do want to say that Chris Nolan, who directed Batman Begins, highest grossing film of all time, or highest grossing comic book film of all time, he's British. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What I'm talking about is whether you're passionate about that particular franchise or not. And in the case of Bryan Singer, okay, yes, Christopher Nolan is British, but I guess he really liked Batman.
Yeah, for sure.
And Bryan Singer said that he really felt the connection with the X-Men characters. He felt that he was an outcast, just like this mutants. After all, he's like a triple minority or a quadruple minority.
Yeah.
He's like Jewish and orphan, gay, as well as dyslexic.
Of course, yeah. So he's like a mutant, or he's like
He's
an
like a mutant,
alien,
so he can really empathize with the characters, and that's why that film had the depth and the sort of empathy that's required when you're portraying any kind of character.
Can I give you my theory on why there's like this influx of superhero comic book to film adaptations nowadays?
Sure.
In the 1930s and 1940s, there was a thing called the Great Depression. You know, our generation wouldn't really know about it. Us, our grandparents, they would know about it. And during the Great Depression, comic books is called the golden age of comic books, because that's where people were into cheap forms of entertainment, and comic books was the best form of entertainment. And the print run for comic books were just flying off the shelves, just pumping. It's almost like sweatshops of it. And it's funny to note that right now, when we're having our recession, there's this comic book to film adaptations. I think it's because people want to escape in a story where the protagonist is more powerful and godlike, so they want to feel empowered by comic books.
Well, I kind of disagree with you there, because I think a lot of these projects were already in production before the subprime crisis and the mortgage crisis. So it's simply because our technology with the blue screen and the green screen has allowed you to do all kinds of things that you couldn't do before, and that's why it made it easier to put Dr. Manhattan on Mars,
and everything,
and him floating in blue and stuff like that. It's so much easier now compared to before. So that's another reason. And because our generation grew up watching a lot of playing computer games and watching cartoons, and cartoons move really fast, and so we want that in our so-called adult entertainment too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think of all the upcoming movies that are coming out? Which one you're looking forward to?
Okay, Akira. I'm afraid they're going to mess up Akira because it's such a cult classic. It started out in Japan, 1988. Beautiful anime. It inspired a lot of films like The Matrix. Matrix took a lot of ideas out of Akira.
When you think of manga or anime, you think of Akira, right?
Exactly.
You don't think of anything else.
And Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell.
So now they're turning Akira into a live action film. Now, don't you think that's a recipe for disaster?
It sounds like it. Some things should remain in the original medium.
Yeah.
I don't think certain video games should be made into movies. I don't think certain comic books should be made into films. And,
like what? Any specific objections?
Video games to films,
both?
Okay, for video games, Halo and Gears of War. These games are larger than life. They are first-person shooters, and they can only be filmed and they're going to be experienced in a first-person shooter way. It's sort of like when they experimented with Doom and The Rock, or Dwayne Johnson, he's like to be called now. And the last scene,
I love Doom, the
first-person shooter, and
the first-person shooter scene, just like whoa,
it didn't work at all. In fact, it was almost puke-inducing in the cinemas. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to Wolverine Origins.
Yes, it looked good. Gavin Hood is an interesting director. He makes actually a lot of dramas Rendition and Sotsi. Rendition, war drama with Reese Witherspoon, people crying and stuff like that. So he's gonna turn this into a bit of a character drama, I hope.
Yeah, I'm a DC comic books fan, more so than a Marvel comic book fan. So I'm looking forward to Green Lantern. Green Lantern. I see a trilogy inside there. It's almost like the Green Lanterns are sort of like Jedi of the DC comic books, where they're like intergalactic police force. I know Martin Campbell is attached to direct it. He directed Casino Royale. So I'm really looking forward to Green Lantern. Because Green Lantern, after Superman and Batman, is one of my favorite comic book characters.
Okay, so Thor, directed by Kenneth Branagh. It's kind of like Ang Lee taking on the Hulk. And then you get this Shakespearean thing about a man who has issues with his father. It's not Shakespearean. I don't know what. it's almost Freudian.
It's almost Freudian.
Yeah, it was like too deep.
But I think I actually enjoyed the first Hulk more than I did the Incredible Hulk. Maybe because I like Eric Bana. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it was
And
better
Jennifer
than
Connelly.
it was better than Incredible Hulk. Incredible Hulk was very shallow and
Yeah,
just,
very, very shallow. But they're just building up momentum to the Avengers movie.
Hulk was too deep. Too deep.
Yeah.
Not enough action. I felt so. If they
Why
could,
is he angry?
That's right. You have to knowing Ang Lee, he probably has to think very deeply. He makes his actors think very deeply of why you're like you need to leap from cliff to cliff.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all that we have for you today.
I could
Thank you
go
so
on
much
forever.
thank you so much for joining us. Join us again very soon for Razor Pop.
Yo, what up? It's Razor Pop lah.